Okay, today we have the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo. Thanks for coming on.
It's great to be with you.
So I know that Republicans are looking for something or anything to attack the American Jobs Plan with, and so they're preemptively claiming that it's some liberal giveaway. But if we break the bill down, wouldn't you see a massive amount of benefits to Americans who identify as Republicans? Like, wouldn't there be a disproportionate benefit to Republicans for expanding access to rural broadband and upgrading VA hospitals? And don't Republicans use roads?
But exactly. Yeah, I couldn't say it better than you just did. Republicans use roads. Republicans need better water infrastructure to make sure everybody has clean water. Everybody deserves access to high quality, high speed broadband. We have major issues of national security if we don't shore up our semiconductor supply chain and other supply chains. So yeah, it's not for Democrats or Republicans. It's for all Americans.
Yeah, and I do want to go back to the issue of semiconductors, but just to stay on this for a moment, Republicans have been running for years on salvaging a few thousand jobs in obsolete sectors like coal, for example. But the infrastructure package focuses on jobs of the future. So let's take it out of the abstract. What are the jobs of the future, and how do you convince people to look forward instead of backwards?
So, look, I think it is important to acknowledge people's anxiety who currently have jobs in the coal industry or oil and natural gas. It's a really tough message to hear that those industries are declining and that we have to move away from them. We have to move away from them because we have to, meet the needs of climate change. But I do think it's important for us to like dwell on that anxiety because it's real. I'm somebody who, my dad lost his job when we were younger. He was in a manufacturing operation and it was really tough on our family. And so there will be a lot of families that struggle with these transitions. However, we will have jobs for them. And I think that's the key message. And that is what's so powerful about the president's jobs package. We're going to create tens of millions of jobs that will be available at every level. We're going to invest in research and development. So if you are a college graduate or professional engineering, there are more jobs there. We're going to invest in manufacturing so that you can have great manufacturing jobs if you don't have a college degree or if you do. So I think that, yes, it can be scary and change is hard, but we want to move into the future, and the president calls for these investments so everybody has a shot at a job in the future.
I think too something important is that if these new jobs of the future are coming anyway, and the jobs that are on the decline are leaving anyway, it would be more important to get them while the opportunity still presents itself, as opposed to trying to hold on to something that's going to leave anyway. So I think just there's something to be said for setting yourself up for success while you can now.
Yeah, and also being honest, like
Yeah.
being honest about it. Certain industries are shrinking. So let's not pretend they're not. Let's be honest with people and help them get new jobs and
Yeah.
maybe better jobs.
So while attacking the American Jobs Plan, Republicans have seized on elements that don't fit into the confines of their definition of infrastructure, like the care economy. So can you speak to why the care economy is so important to keep in this bill?
It's vital to keep in the bill. I'm here talking to you while my mom, who's about to be 90, is being cared for by awesome professional home care workers. I have had my children taken care of by an amazingly loving caretaker for their lives. We need to be able, it's core to American productivity that we can continue to go to work reliably and make sure our loved ones are cared for. But even more than that, right now in America, there are millions and millions of women, and they are mostly women of color, working full-time in important jobs in poverty. They're the ones doing the dignified work of taking care of our elderly loved ones, making $8, $9, $10 an hour, working 40, 50 hours a week in poverty. It's dignified work. They deserve dignified wages. And so this I'm proud of the president for putting this in the package. It's core to American competitiveness, and I think it's past time that we recognize that and that we make these investments.
Right. And I think building on your point, like even if we don't focus on the emotional aspect of it, of just, making sure that people have dignity in the work they do, the fact is that it stimulates the economy. Like what part of that is bad? Which part do Republicans oppose? At the end of the day, their only argument can be like, well, yes, this would stimulate the economy, but our red line is semantics. Our priority number one is the dictionary.
Yeah. By the way, you're exactly right. We know it is a fact that, say low wage workers, say minimum wage workers, when they get a raise, it all goes into the economy.
Yeah.
They're not, it immediately goes into the economy. It will stimulate the economy.
So we had spoken about this just a few minutes ago, the idea of like the semiconductors and everything. So now we depend on China for component manufacturing for chips and semiconductors, other computer parts. Given the dangers of a few things that we've seen lately, like shipping log jams, the danger of public health emergencies like this pandemic, and also just in general U.S.-Chinese geopolitical fallout, how do you rectify this to protect U.S. interests? Like, will our position be to diversify supply chains? And if that is the case, like, how can the U.S. government facilitate that?
We have to make investments at home. You just talked about semiconductors. Once upon a time, not that long ago, when I was in college, actually, America led the world in making like cutting edge semiconductor chips, what they call the bleeding edge, the leading edge, like,
Yeah.
the stuff that's like at the edge of innovation. Today, America makes 0% of cutting edge semiconductor chips, 0%. So that's a problem. There is one memory chip manufacturer in the United States of America, Micron, one. So come on, let's get going. Let's get back to work in America. Let's make these investments in America, build factories so we can make cutting edge chips in America.
How would the White House, how would the U.S. government, how would you be able to play a role in facilitating the reshoring of these jobs?
So the president's plan has a component in it. It's a $50 billion investment in semiconductor industry. Some of it is for job training. Some of it is to actually help build manufacturing facilities. Some of it is in basic research. But essentially, there's a lot of talk about how we play defense with China, tariffs and the like. Let's play offense. Let's build factories in America and put people to work and train them to build right here in our own country. So I hope Congress passes the CHIPS Act, or puts the money into it. It's $50 billion, and it'll go a long way.
So building on that point exactly of playing offense as opposed to defense when it comes to China, China's been heavily investing in its own infrastructure. So does this give them an advantage on the U.S.?
Well, look, I think that if we don't make our own moves, absolutely. We can't stand still. If we stand still and don't invest, they will overtake us. Absolutely. But that's why Congress can quibble with certain parts of the president's plan. Maybe they can come back with some, different ideas about how to get there. But throwing their hands up and saying, let's do nothing, is wrong, and we will fall behind, to answer your question.
So it would seem fair to say that blocking an infrastructure package that does exactly that builds up our infrastructure and puts us on par with China, that blocking this infrastructure package really only serves to help China continue to get a leg up on the U.S.
No question about it. I think that's well said.
You would think that the country that Republicans fear-mongering about the most, having a leg up, would be some incentive to pass this package. Like, they'll wail about China on Fox News, but when it comes time to actually do something about it and invest in ourselves, it's a lot of opposition. So there are a group of moderates who've come out with their own response to the infrastructure package, which was a $600 to $800 billion bill, a third the size of the package that the White House is proposing. So is there any reason at all why Democrats should acquiesce to Republican demands to subvert their own package by shrinking it to 2/3 of the size?
No, but I do think there's room for compromise. So listen, I give them credit for saying, we think there's need for big investments and we want to put forth our proposal. We can't stop with that proposal. The president led, he put out a big, bold investment, 2 trillion. We think that's what's necessary. Now we have to do the hard work of legislating and finding some compromise.
So some are now calling for the infrastructure package to be split into two. One half that's basically bipartisan, and the other that Democrats would pass through reconciliation. But if that's the case, and Democrats are looking to use reconciliation for half the bill anyway, isn't it just 6 in one, half dozen in the other? Like, what's the function of splitting the process in half if reconciliation is going to be used anyway?
The president feels very strongly that we try as hard as we can to have bipartisan support for as much of this as we can. So this is the unglamorous, unsexy work of government. This is the wheels of government grinding. Stay at the table, do the people's work, try to find compromise. And so, look, if at the end of the day, as you say, we have to do it on party lines, we may do that. But at the moment, right now, in April, let's stay at the table, let's work, because like you said, this is about American jobs, American leadership, and we ought to all be able to agree on that.
Yeah, and I hope that's a warning that's heard, because, especially after the American Rescue Plan, that was a bill that that over 70% of the country supported, and we couldn't manage to find a single vote from the entire Republican Party. So, for a party that does call for bipartisanship and unity, if they're doing it in good faith, this would be a time to actually, put their money where their mouth is and show that they're willing to be bipartisan. With that said, if we do continue to see these Republican efforts to sink this American jobs plan, whether it be because they think it doesn't fit into the confines of their definition of infrastructure, or because they've suddenly rediscovered the debt, what would your response be to these Republicans who've made their top priority when it comes to infrastructure just to oppose Joe Biden?
I think it's shameful. I really do. I come from Rhode Island. I'm a Patriots fan. Like Bill Belichick says, do your job. Do your job. Your job is to get things done for the American people. It's a great package the president has put before them. If you don't like all of it, fine. But to do nothing it's shameful. Americans are struggling right now, really struggling. We have an opportunity to do something big and bold and be there for Americans, and we ought to do it.
That's a great place to end here. So, Secretary Raimondo, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time to talk.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.